Well, good morning. Naomi, I am so pleased that you could be with us. For all of my students, just a full disclosure that I've known Naomi Boyer for many years. We worked together in self-directed learning research. But Naomi, why don't you introduce yourself to the students?
Fantastic. Good morning, Roger. I'm glad to be here with you. My name is Naomi Boyer. I am the Associate Vice President of Strategic Initiatives at Polk State College in Florida. And I'm delighted to be here talking with you today.
Well, Naomi, just thank you so very much again for being here. I know the students will be delighted in this particular interview. Why don't you give us an idea of what all you do in your role as a higher education administrator?
Absolutely. I have the best job ever. I get so much joy out of what I do because I get to do so many different things on any given day. I'll kind of lay out some of the different activities that I'm responsible for. So as part of being the Associate VP for Strategic Initiatives, I basically do anything for the college that they don't have someone else assigned to. That means I get the call from the president when a new project comes across her desk. So I have oversight of all of the distance education and instructional technology. That includes the faculty development, the course development, maintaining quality in our online courses, working to integrate instructional technology into the classroom environment for faculty and students, as well as designing specialty programs to help faculty self-direct through the technology learning process. I'm responsible for building international initiatives for the college and working with the faculty and staff to do lots of different things on the international front. So we have many educational abroad opportunities that have emerged in the last 2 years since I've been with the college, as well as working on globalizing the curriculum, and eventually I'd like to bring in additional international students. I make bachelor's degree program recommendations, and as a 4-year college, previously, about the last 5 years, the state of Florida has allowed their colleges to go from 2-year associate's degree offerings to 4-year degree offerings. And so as part of that process, the colleges have been moving through the bachelor proposal process. So right now, I'm working on building a teacher education program for both early childhood and elementary ed. We just pushed through the State Board of Education an aerospace sciences bachelor's program, and that's really the very first one for the state of Florida because no public college nor state university has an aerospace science degree of any kind, so that's really exciting. And then I work strategically within the college with the deans and the provosts to identify other bachelor program opportunities for us as well. I do a lot of community work. I was the chair of the Graduate Polk Committee for our Polk County, as well as participated in the regional opportunities to help finish college completion and increase attainment rates. I work with a number of leadership groups. I work with the school district. I was the community coordinator for the Ford Academy grant to help the school district develop a master plan for academies, and I maintain participation on the Polk Academy's executive board. I am the chair for the Robotics Academy at Winter Haven High School. I work on the development of robotics education opportunities for K-12 pipeline students. So we have a summer program for middle school and high school students, as well as a number of robotic teams that I support. Like I said, I get to do something different on every day. So it's very exciting to work internally as well as externally and build those community relationships to kind of take the college to the next level. I get to kind of play fortune teller and look at what comes next in innovation. And that's really exciting for me.
Wow, it sounds like you have much on your plate at all times. How did you happen to move into the administrative role? Did you start out just as a faculty member? What kind of was the route that you went through as an individual to achieve your status at this point?
Well, My educational process, my bachelor's and master's is in special education. When I went on to the and I also had a second master's in ed leadership. My PhD is in interdisciplinary education, which I focused on organizational change, and I took a lot of business classes as part of that process. I did my dissertation on building online learning communities in international environments, and so that bridged my expertise out even a little bit further. And when I got done with my degree, I was working for USF on their Lakeland campus, and they asked me to come in and facilitate the online piece, the distance ed piece. And so I kind of moved into an administrative role, but I also had a faculty assignment at that point in time. And I was continuing my dissertation and doing research and continuing to write. I was teaching at that point in time, but I was also facilitating the distance options for the campus. And then I steadily kind of worked my way through the administrative track while maintaining that faculty role at the same time. About 3 to 4 years into my work after finishing the PhD, I had the opportunity to move full administrative role. And that's the point where I moved into I think at that point I was doing mostly the instructional technology and the distance ed. And then through working my way within USF on that campus, I became the assistant VP for Extended University. And that's kind of where I started this opportunity of a more broad-based access. So I was doing the distance ed, I was doing the international, and then I took on the continuing education piece. So the activities I was doing just slowly spread out. And then about 2 years ago, I had the fortune to be able to come over to Polk State and switched over and working directly with Dr. Eileen Holden here, who's the president, and was able to take on my current role.
I know that one of the things that frustrated me during the time that I took on a series of administrative duties when I was at Syracuse University, I so enjoyed being a faculty member and doing my teaching and my research, and I found myself having to spend way more time than I had anticipated in the administrative side, so it was a little difficult to keep up with the academic, the research side. I know you and I have known each other, as I noted in the introduction, for a number of years because of our mutual respect for and enjoyment in doing self-directed learning research. How do you try to balance all of that?
Well, for a very long time now, research has not necessarily been a part of my load, so it's not a part of my administrative assignment. But I think for those of us that enjoy the teaching and enjoy the research, somehow you've got to carve out the time to do that, and I would strongly encourage anyone who's going into that administrative track to keep that on their vita. It's really important for them as they move forward. It's always a struggle. I have found that as I moved into more administrative and higher responsibility roles, it's required that I do more joint research with others rather than just working on it independently. And so carving out the time to I also work on grants was something I forgot to mention before. And so making sure that I make the relationships, which is largely what I think is successful, helps people to be successful in higher administration. Higher ed administration is building those relationships so that you can work with others to get things done. And I've had research partners over the last 8 to 10 years that we continue our work, and because they also move forward and are driving in that direction, it requires that I keep up with that research, even if it's on the weekends and the evenings, and just finding the time to get it done.
Well, it sounds like a constant juggling act, and I certainly remember that during those days for myself. What about one of the things that students in my class will be doing is to try to understand within some institution of higher education the organizational structure and framework of an institution, and how various administrators chat with each other, report to each other, that sort of thing. Could you give the students a little bit of an idea on how you relate to other administrators and what really is the whole chain of command relationship there at Polk State?
Sure. What's really interesting, the two institutions that I've been within have completely different structures, and I'd like to, I'm making an assumption that most institutions have a little bit of a different framework in how they work in that hierarchy. Polk State has a very decentralized model. We have multiple campuses, and on each of those campuses there's a provost that's not the academic. When I heard provost coming from the university side of things, I thought the provost was basically the chief academic officer, and that's not the case within this institution. The provost is more of the operational officer for the campuses. So we have two main campuses with additional satellite centers that are associated with those two main campuses, and each campus has a provost that is the operational head of that campus. Then there's an academic dean for each campus that handles, that supervises faculty, handles the scheduling, deals with most of the faculty concerns and academic curricular concerns, and the faculty report up within each campus. Overarching in an organization is what they call district offices, and that's more of the system level offices. And it's not necessarily a hierarchy that the campuses report up to the system, up to the district. It's more of a mutual relationship. So there's an associate vice president for academic and student affairs at the district level. I'm at the district level. Our institutional research and effectiveness is at the district level. We have a chief operating officer that is over IT and the business offices and all of that as well. That's at the institutional level. The foundation and advancement is at the institutional level, so at the district level. And then there's a couple of other individuals. Our corporate college, which is our continuing education focused on the industry side, is at that district level as well. And the folks who are assigned at the district level are more colleagues and support services for those that are at the campus level. There are advantages to that decentralized model, and then there are obviously challenges as well. On the challenges side, I think sometimes we don't have the best communication between our two campuses when it comes to, let's say we have a science group that's over in Lakeland and a science group that's in Winter Haven, and perhaps they're not always communicating and on the same page when it comes to some of those academic functions because they're not a shared departmental model. On the other hand, that allows each campus to really identify their own unique identity and who they are and how they relate to the students. So it's always a very interesting balancing act to be able to provide quality academic services to students that allow for service to that location.
One of the things you had said earlier in our conversation, you talked a little bit about the various international projects and initiatives with which you are involved. That sounds like that could be very exciting. Tell us a little bit more about that, some of the travel that you do, and the kinds of things that you're hoping to accomplish with your international initiatives.
Absolutely. When I was with USF, University of South Florida, I did a lot more international travel. So I went to El Salvador, I went to India. We were busy trying to build campuses or a location in each of in different areas around the United States. Through that work and that travel, I did build lots of relationships with other institutions, and those relationships are what I have found instrumental as I came over to Polk State. At Polk State, we serve more of our local population, so we are a local access, affordable option for students versus being a state university, which is more destination-based. Because of that, we really don't have a whole bunch of infrastructure to support a large influx of international students. So at this point in time, we have some international students, but most of them are athletes, and so the athletes are treated more with kid gloves as part of the process, more than a general international student would be. So as part of my work on the international, when I came over to Polk State, rather than traveling internationally to try to build those relationships for the flow of students, I began focusing on the infrastructure that was needed to be able to support those students when they get here, when we're ready to bring those students in. Most of my travel has been more local, but we have been facilitating groups. So those relationships I formed at my previous institution have allowed me to say, oh, well, when are you coming to visit? Come see me at my new institution. And those have carried us through. So one of the programs that we started the first year I was here was we sent a group of our college students over to France to visit with students at Polytech Marseille. And the students there planned an experience for our students. And then the following October, their students came over here for a week and had the experience of practicing their English, and our students planned a trip for them. We called that the Global Ambassadors Program, and that stemmed solely from the relationships that had been previously established before and allowed us to begin that education abroad process. It was not an easy process to get all of that going. In fact, after that very first trip to France, when the faculty member came back and turned in their expenses and tried to get the reimbursement, the business office called them and said, we don't do euros. We don't know how to convert euros, and we don't do euros in the business office. And so it took a lot of facilitation, let's say, to try to get folks who for maybe have been in those offices for 25, 30 years, who were being asked to kind of step out of their comfort zone and do some things differently and help them transition into building the opportunities. And we sent another 2 groups out over the summer, one of which was to the Andros Islands to actually do science field work in the Bahamas for 2, we actually had 3 science classes where they did their lab work in the Bahamas, in the ocean, actually doing the activities rather than sitting in a laboratory here on campus. We have 2 more groups. I have a collegiate group, so my high school students that are part of our college are going over to France to participate in an international robotics conference in November. I have a group of students who are presenting at a conference in South Africa that are going over in September. We're planning a group to go to Ireland. And so through the relationships and through many of the international conferences, we've been able to start to grow and facilitate. We're in the process right now of working. I'm cultivated faculty to put together a grant proposal, and we're going to be building a global studies certificate to attach to our degree options so it can go on folks' transcripts.
One of the things that's happening in the state of New York, our 2-year colleges are known by the more popular term of community colleges. And just as an example, very recently, Lemoyne College, where I am teaching, developed a relationship with a nearby community college in a community about an hour away, where there's a guaranteed 2-year to 4-year agreement between the 2 institutions, and that's a brand new initiative, and I think that we'll see more of that happening. Right here in Syracuse, we have a very large community college that has really grown dramatically in the last few years. They now have dorms and are talking about relationships with other institutions for 4-year degrees. Is that sort of thing happening in Florida, and what do you see in terms of the future in that?
Well, Florida has always had a very strong 2+2 arrangement. So students who get their associate's degree at the community college then have access, really it's the Associate of Arts degree, then would have access to programs at the 4-year universities within the state university system. So there's a articulation and transfer process that's already there within the state. When we went to our colleges, our community colleges, to become state colleges, depending on the name of each institution, but it opened up the opportunity for those 4-year degrees. It's still, the model is still a 2+2. So rather than articulating to other universities, we're just articulating within ourselves to those upper 2 years of the program. So they have to finish a degree, whether that's an Associate of Science or an Associate of Arts. It also has to be workforce based. So our degrees, we can't do English and we can't do history. Our degrees at the 4-year level have to be workforce job related degrees that come out of that. And it has to be tied to the labor pool. So there have to be jobs available for folks to be able to graduate. Florida's been under this whole $10,000 degree bachelor's saga that I know Texas bid on, and well, our governor kind of bid on it too. And so while there's been a lot of rhetoric about providing that $10,000 degree, and we can all do that fairly easily. It does include Pell Grants and other granting opportunities that are out there to get those costs down. Because even without the grants, it would probably be about a $14,000 bachelor's degree, which is fairly reasonable when you compare it to the rest of the United States. In Florida, not only do we have that articulation opportunity, but there's a lot of articulation all the way through the high school, all the way through the university level. So we have dual enrollment classes. Polk State actually offers a number of courses within the high schools, as well as those students have the opportunity to sign up for the college courses at no cost to the student. So the student does not pay tuition. They do not have to pay their books. They get to take the college classes. So there's a number of students that graduate with an associate's degree at the end of of their high school.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, so it's a very interesting cost savings model for high school students. And there's a number of reasons why some would or would not make that choice to do those classes. So we have a lot of articulations with our Associate of Science degrees. Because of the academies that we have in the school district, if let's say it's an information technology academy in the school, they may be taking some of our Associate of Science technical courses, and we have articulations to count their courses if they choose to come in and work on completing those degrees here with us. We then articulate to any of the universities, public, private, doesn't matter. We can work out articulation agreements to provide the full pathway to get people through the degree process at the appropriate level. Valencia, the state of Florida, has worked with their local university at University of South Central Florida, and basically they have a guarantee to those students that if you complete your associate's degree at Valencia, you will get into UCF and you have a direct path. Not all have done that way. What happens with the articulation agreement from the associate's level to the 4-year is each university can decide on those prerequisites that they want to have. So even though they have to take the degree in bulk, the colleges at the upper 2 levels don't necessarily have to accept all of the specialty prerequisite courses. For an example would be the University of Florida. They may have specified certain engineering courses that only they offer. So if you get your associate's degree at Polk State College, they will accept you at the University of Florida. But to get into the College of Engineering, they may tell you still have to take these 3 or 4 classes to begin entry into that program. So those kinds of agreements with specific programs, the universities analyzing the under-level programs are all going on in the state of Florida. One of the very interesting things I think about the 4-year bachelor's degrees for the community colleges transition into state colleges is even though it is still a 2+2 program, a number of those programs are building it from the AS articulation, from the Associate of Science articulation. So, for instance, I mentioned we just finished proposing an aerospace science degree. We have an Associates of Science in aviation. And so someone can get their professional pilot Associate of Science degree, and then because they only take 18 credit hours in general education, and the state requirement for general education is 36 credit hours, usually those 36 credit hours is covered with Associate of Arts that's taken care of in the first 2 years. Now they're missing those 18 general education hours, which is why many of the universities will not take the Associate of Science degree, because they're missing a large chunk of that liberal arts education. And so what we've done is they've kind of turned the model of the bachelor's degree on it over. They flipped it around, and now those students have 18 credit hours of general education at the upper level. But if a student comes in with the Associates of Arts degree, they'll take the 18 technical hours from the lower level to fill in the holes so that both groups of students can get through that bachelor's degree process and meet all of the same requirements. So there's a lot of that kind of interesting education modeling going on in order to help students be successful and get done and get out to the workforce.
Well, this has been such a great conversation, Naomi, and I really appreciate your taking the time with my students. This video actually will be aired a little later in the semester, and I know some of the students. I met some of them ahead of this class time. I know some of them are thinking down the road about an administrative route and how to move that way. That's why they're interested in this particular course. Do you have any kind of advice or suggestions for someone thinking about a route as a college higher education administrator and what they might be thinking about early in their careers?
Yes, I would. Flexibility is a key component. Being able to adapt and be flexible on any given day is of critical importance. Hard work. I know my personal schedule, and I know that everyone doesn't work this way, but my day gets filled with meetings, and I think every administrator's day gets filled with meetings, and usually those meetings start anywhere as early as 8 o'clock, and sometimes some days it's back-to-back meetings and you don't finish until 5 o'clock during the day. What happens then is, when does the work get done? Because you're in those meetings and you're generating work and you're generating projects and there's things that have to get done. So what happens is your day ends up expanding. You end up coming in, like my day usually starts before 7 and after 7 coming. And that's without the community events that you end up having to participate in and be active in. So having energy, keeping your health up, and balancing all of that with exercise and eating right, and all of those things are critically important, because the days will fill, and it is hard work. And then also carving out time for teaching and research and the other components of what a good scholar does is really important. So that flexibility of being able to kind of balance life, family life, home, fun activities, hobbies, work, is always a delicate balancing act. So finding some time for yourself and all that can be really a challenge. And build those relationships, because I truly believe that as you build those relationships, you build a reputation, and that's really what helps you find the positions, the support for your causes, a lot of times we become salespeople for what we want to accomplish. So if it's the international, or if I'm trying to get faculty excited about building something of quality for the online environment, you become the champion, and you've got to be able to sell everyone and get them on board. And bring food to your meetings, because if you feed them, they don't want to mess with you.
Well, great advice, and I remember doing that myself. So, Naomi, thank you once again. I really appreciate it, and look forward to seeing you in the future.
Absolutely. Have a great day.